Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for listening wherever you are and on whatever platform you're listening to us on. As always, your support is greatly appreciated in sharing the podcast and all of the things you do to support our podcast. I'm so greatly appreciative, and thank you so much for all of that. So today's topic is one that is fundamental to any team's offensive success, and it's so important that it's worth dedicating its own episode to. So today we're going to be talking about passing and teaching effective passes and ways to get kids meaningful practice-like situations to improve their passing. So I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff in this one, with passing being such a fundamental skill that our players need in order to be successful on the court. So my guest today to help discuss this topic is Coach Jordan Castaneda. Coach, how are you today?
Good, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Ready to dive right into this. This should be a good one. So, Coach, let's go ahead and get started right with your introduction. Let's talk about your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Where's the game taking you, and where are you currently at right now?
Started. I think my first word I ever said was ball, so it started from the jump. But I've been playing basketball my whole life. You know, played youth growing up, got to high school, played at Cypress High School my freshman year, transferred over, finished at Huntington Beach High School. Luckily enough, my sophomore year, I was able to commit to Montana State University. Unfortunately, I ended up having a spinal cord injury my senior year going into Montana State. So they kind of derailed the playing part. They sent me to a prep school in Jackson, Mississippi to rehab. Kind of when I was there, it was when I realized the playing part wasn't ever going to come back for me. So came back home, got into coaching, coached at my alma mater at Huntington Beach, coached the freshman team, I think, helped my dad out. Then I moved over to another school in this area, Fountain Valley High School, coached there for about 2-3 years. I moved over to the JV head coaching job at Long Beach Wilson, was there for about 3 years, and now I'm over at Orange High School. My first varsity head coaching job, I actually took over about 2 weeks before the season started last year. So I'll be heading into I like to joke, I'm heading into my second year as head coach with 2 weeks of practice under my belt, especially with everything going on now. So
yeah, you're certainly kind of thrown into the fire, so to speak. You're really coming into a unique situation, and it sounds like you've also had quite a few different journeys throughout California there on your coaching journey as well, and I'm sure have picked up things along the way at each stop and unique experiences at each stop as well.
Most definitely.
Let's kind of talk about that before we get into our topic. I know that you have experience that includes coaching in more affluent areas as well as coaching in what we might call like more underserved areas. So I'm just curious if somebody, as somebody with that sort of experience, what have you found are similar in both of those areas, and then what are also some differences that you noticed with those experiences?
Similarities, I think. At least from the schools that I've coached at, it's always been the kids have been motivated. You know, even the kids from the affluent areas, they've been motivated, and I don't know if we've just been lucky enough to have those kids, because I know that can not be the case sometimes. A lot of the times, those kids can feel entitled and not want to work hard, but luckily, at both all the situations I've been in, I've always had kids that are willing to work. You know, willing to put up with the style of coaching that we do, which is it's very tough style of coaching. I would say it just brings a different set of problems when it comes parents wise in those situations. A lot of the times in the more affluent areas, it's kind of like, you know, the parents make the donation, they think their kid that's playing time for their kid. Where at other schools, I've had parents say, I have no money, you know, and that's it. I'm gonna drop my kid off, and that's it, and you guys can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kids usually that, you know, the better players that work hard. To me, I don't mind both. You know, it's a lot easier to run a program with how having to learn about financials, and you can have every parent write a check and it's not an issue, and your program just runs smoothly. When at other schools, we got to fundraise just to be able to play in tournaments. We got to fundraise just to be able to have practice uniforms. Um, and that's tough, especially when it's really just on the kids in those underserved areas. It's not really, a lot of them don't have as much parent involvement, so the kids are really out there doing the groundwork themselves. I've had kids go door to door for a fundraiser in some areas, and then there's some schools we don't even have a fundraiser. So everyone writes an $800 check, and here you go. Now we're set for the season.
Right.
So, I prefer coaching in the underserved areas, honestly, just because that's something that you can kind of build them on and kind of build a chip on their shoulder. Kind of, everyone's overlooking you guys. No one expects nothing from you, so you use that as motivation. And for me, I've had success with that. It's a different kind of motivation rather than someone that got it all already.
I think that one of the things that is difficult sometimes for coaches, and I know even I've had this experience too, is when I coach in an environment that was different than the one that I grew up in. And so some of the things that like I thought were normal, and I'm like, oh, this is just how things are going to go. And then you move into a different area or go to like a different program, and it's like, oh wait, I got to do things completely different. Like this isn't normal to you guys at all. And so, but like you said, I think that to an extent, like kids are kids, and they'll want to work hard, and hopefully they'll buy into the program, and they'll be willing to work. And then, like you kind of mentioned, I think with the community aspect, there might be a lot more work that you might have to do in those underserved areas, but then at the same time, you might get a different sort of like reward out of that. There might be a different feeling you get out of that if you're putting in all that work, like you said, of like fundraising and that instilling kind of that like underdog mentality and really building kids up in that way. I think that there's just unique opportunities in both, but I definitely agree with you in that, working in an area where you don't have to fundraise and you don't have to worry about money in that sense, like that can definitely relieve you of a couple headaches as well. So
yeah, most definitely,
for sure. And but yeah, really, I think as you kind of alluded to, it's like kind of like kids are kids, and once they get to that gym, it's sort of like it's just game on, and then you just sort of work with them.
Exactly. And for the most part, in high school, it's mostly just the parents. Anyways, it's usually not really the kids who are giving you the headaches. So most of the time, it's really just kind of setting the tone with the parents early in both areas, and just kind of letting them know expectations. I always have a parent meeting at the end of the year, say, hey, you don't discuss playing time with any coaches. And that doesn't really always end up working. You got some parents every year that don't have something to say, but it's for the most part, it's never really the kids. You have parents that are unhappy, then you go and ask the kid, and the kid's having the time of his life. The kid didn't even know, oh, I'm not even upset about my playing time. I don't know why my dad's talking to you. So it's mostly just the parents from my experience. I've never really experienced a kid having any issues with the kid's attitude when it comes to playing time, nothing like that. So mostly just been parents.
Right. And just to kind of wrap that thought up, I think that is something good to just sort of keep in mind, is that the interactions that like a coach may have with their parents and the things that maybe the parents are saying to that coach, that might not necessarily be what the kid is thinking or what's going through their head at all. So definitely worth having a conversation with the player too, and figuring out where they're at with everything, because sometimes there is that disconnect, because teenagers, as we all know, aren't exactly the most open with conversations with their parents sometimes. So definitely important to make sure you have a conversation with both. So that, absolutely. So let's kind of jump into this topic today of just kind of talking about passing and just teaching effective passing and making sure that the passing is good within your team. And so I know it's kind of a broad topic, so we'll break it down here into a few questions. So let's talk about, in terms of your team, about what is the importance in passing and what your team is running, and what are some of those musts or non-negotiables when it comes to how the passing works within what you guys run.
Passing is very, very important. I was a pass first point guard growing up. I was, that's what they recruited me as in college. And so to me, it's always been like, great passing is like, oh, that's the greatest thing to me. So for my guys, we run a lot of transition. We want to play fast. So, it starts for us. It starts with transition passing. It starts with front the ball. And, now if that front is not a good pass, that's a missed opportunity because now the flow is gone. And the same thing goes in the half court. It's, if we're not making good passes, hitting guys in their targets and their hands, then the flow is gone. So I like to stress that every pass is just as important, as the next one. So, that swing pass got to hit the guy in his hands. The extra pass got to hit this guy in his hands, hit him in his target. We always say step into every pass, look the wrist, look up. But for us, it's really just about the flow of the offense. We rely a lot on our ball movement. We rely a lot on getting to the rim and, getting to the paint, kicking. And we like to stress that, hey, that on defense, a deflection to us is we disrupted the flow of the other team's offense. But in our case, when we have the ball on offense, that's just as good as the other team getting a deflection if you throw a bad pass. Mm-hmm. Now the defense recovers. Now you don't have as good of a look. So we like to just really, I think in every drill we run, there's for the most part there's some sort of passing element to it, whether it be some transition offense, whether it be just some half court ball handling stuff. We'll do it with a partner and have them throw passes back and forth in between their dribbling, and it's just, to me, it's probably the biggest part in our offense next to scoring. Obviously, I think that'd be the next biggest thing
Mm-hmm.
to us.
And you talked about you yourself kind of being like a pass first point guard, and is that something that you also try to instill and have within your team? Do you want your point guard to have that mentality of being a pass first type of player?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a point guard right now who's, before I got there, they came from a system. They were running the flex, kind of just methodical, doing this, and can't play for a coach that he messed up. He's getting yelled at, getting taken out the game. So this whole past year has been kind of like, hey, the ball's in your hands. It's your show. You got to get everyone involved. And I think that's been the biggest thing for him, is just me building that confidence in him to say, hey, you're going to mess up, but the ball's still going to be in your hands. You got to just move on to the next play. And he's starting to get there. This COVID stuff kind of set it back a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have to see how it goes when we get back on the court.
Yeah.
But before it all started, he was starting to make strides. And it's just for my point guards, it's always about, hey, you have to be the one in charge of getting everyone involved. You have to be the one in charge of knowing guys' spots, because in our offense, it's usually always going to come back to the point guard. Mm-hmm. We play 4 guards, so there might be 3 point guards on the floor at one time for us. So luckily we have playmakers that, everyone can kind of create for each other or create for themselves. But at the end of the day, it's, I always put it on my starting point guard that, hey, you have to be the one that's communicating. You have to be the one making sure everyone's getting their shots. You got to be the one running the show and kind of orchestrating things on offense for us.
And I think that what that probably does is probably helps that point guard really feel like they have a lot of control or a lot of like power in what's going on. Like they're kind of at the command center, so to speak, because I mean, as we all know that, some point guards, if they hear that, they might be worried like, oh, well, if I'm just passing all the time, like, when am I going to get my opportunity to, do what I need to do? But as you mentioned as well, that you also have, guards who have the ability to make things for themselves as well, but that they should be, looking and seeing the floor and making sure that they're, seeing everything that's happening. And so with that, is that a skill that you find that the kids coming up, they have that skill about how to, even pass the ball correctly? Are there things that you find yourself having to like correct right away? Because I'm assuming your perspective is a little different, because as a point guard, and which you were, and as somebody who's pass first point guard mentality, there might be some things that you recognize right away that maybe others don't. So I'm just curious about what you see when guards start coming into your program in terms of their passing.
I think a lot of it is just basic, fundamental stuff. I feel like I was lucky enough to, my youth coach growing up, his name's Tony Marcus. He's been a high school coach for like 40 plus years out here. He's like a father figure to me. he had us running like the Princeton offense when we were in like first grade. So they were like breaking it down for us big time when we were young. So they were fundamentals. So, there was things that I learned in second grade that I have kids who are sophomores that never even heard of. Stepping into a pass, fake a pass, make a pass. I have kids that just those basic things that to me is, I don't even need to teach that. I thought everyone just, you think everyone just knows that when you grow up learning that at such a young age.
Yeah.
It's just it really comes down to just basic fundamentals. Knowing a passing angle to a post entry pass, knowing when the ball fake, knowing how to throw a backdoor pass, just really really basic things, and that's really what passing is. It's really just about the base. It's really a basic fundamental part of the game. It's not really, once you get to that next level as a point guard, you can kind of get into the flashy areas of it, the no looks, the misdirection type stuff. But in general, it's really just a basic fundamental. And for me, I think the biggest problem I've seen in my program when I inherited it was, just basic stepping into a pass or knowing which pass to make. I had kids trying to make a skip pass with a chest pass through the zone, and it's to you, you're thinking in your head like, how do you even think that's right? But then you got to step back and think about, okay, well, how have they been coached before? What have they been taught before me? And stuff that's just second nature to me is brand new to them.
So I just want to touch on that because I was really curious about that point you made about the chest pass as a skip pass. I guess from your perspective, do you think that your players, like, their mentality is like, I just gotta get the ball like over there, like no matter what way or however I get it over there, I just gotta make sure I get the ball to them, and like that's what their priority is, and not necessarily like what type of pass and stepping into it? Do you find that that's what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of that at first, and it was a lot of there was a lot of them not really considering what the defense is going to be doing. It's kind of just like it's 5-on-0 and the ball, they're just going to let the ball through because you want it to get there, rather than reading the defense and seeing, okay, what do I got to do here? And especially in our league, passing has been so important because in our league, every single team runs 2-3 zone. We're the only team that doesn't play zone, so it's like that. Then especially, it's like that's the most important thing for us is just hitting the high post, looking opposite, getting the skips. But I think I want to say our first league game this past year, we had 0 points at the end of the first quarter. We had 13 turnovers, all unforced off passes, and it was brutal. And we broke it down for them. We said, hey, they're not doing it to us; we're doing it to ourselves. You shore up the passing, you make better passes, game will change. And I think we ended up losing the game by 1, but to come back 20-0, I think we ended up losing like 80 to 70, 79, something like that. And I said, you eliminate that one period from making all those bad passes, it's a whole different ball game. Right. So I think that was a great game for us to kind of stress the importance of passing and the how important it is to our offense and to our overall goal of winning games.
Right. And from what you remember of that situation, were they the same type of passes that were being forced? Was it all over the place? I'm curious because if where those errors are being made, or what you've seen in terms of like the same mistakes, if they were the same mistakes, or were they different mistakes that were being made in that situation?
That game, it was kind of, it's the same thing. It wasn't really, it was passes, it's going 4 feet over a guy's head, or it's going at his feet. It's just, it was just terribly placed passes. And I don't know if it was pressure because the first league game, is these guys, I had a very, very young team this year. I started 4 sophomores and a freshman. I don't know if they're, just the nerves got to them. The league games is a little different than tournaments and singles. So
sure,
the pressure might have got to them, but it was a lot of just unforced bad plays. Like I said, we did it to ourselves. And that was, I think, the most frustrating part was that, it's not, they're not pressuring us. They're not forcing us into these turnovers. It's just terrible, terrible passes. And, they were able to shore it up. And I think it was just a nerve thing, but it was,
Well, I think that kind of leads into, a thought that I was having in terms of like passing and teaching effective passing, and that the passes that they do in practice almost need to have some sort of like competitive or some sort of situation to them where they almost like feel like a little bit, I'll say nervous is the right word, but they feel that like competitiveness to where like it's important that this pass gets made correctly because like you mentioned in that first, whether it's that first league game or whatever the case may be, that lazier pass that they may have done in practice just to kind of go through the motions like that's not going to be the type of pass that they're going to be making, during a game. And so with that, when you're going through your practices and implementing your practices in terms of passing specifically, how like game like are the situations in which you are, whether it's practice passing or going over passing? I guess how game like are those situations and how competitive are they?
Um, I mean, right now it's right
Well,
now we can't do it. Yeah, right now
typically,
we
I
can't do
suppose.
anything. It said, and it was funny when you reached out to me for this podcast. I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, I don't even remember what passing drills are like anymore. It's been so long since we've
I
been
know,
able to
isn't that
share a
funny?
ball with each other.
I know.
I forgot what we used to do, but now it's for us, it's always a lot of our conditioning and a lot of our you know up and down stuff is just all scrimmaging 5-on-5 or 4-on-4, and we like to stress just the passing within our offense. So it's always hands got to be ready. You always got to give whoever's passing the ball, you got to have a target. Um, if you don't call for the ball, you don't pass the guy the ball. That's at least what we stress in practice is it's always meeting the ball. We play a 4-out, so guard to guard, you always got to shorten the pass up. We stress that a lot. We stress getting open on the wing, giving your man a target, hitting the target. Um, and for the most part, we used to do it a lot with it's always live kind of situations. So we like to do a lot of competitive stuff. And it's usually the defense is kind of what gets you scoring. We don't really ever have any situations where, okay, you score, you get a point. It's usually, okay, you get a stop, you get a point. So for the offense, it's okay, let's not turn the ball over. So how can we not turn the ball over and not give this team a point? So for the passing, it's really that's it's really important. We like to stress it a lot, just kind of in live situations in game. We don't really have like many drills where it's like, okay, we start off practice passing back and forth. We used to starting passing the ball back and forth, going over bounce pass, one hand bounce pass, one hand chest pass, overhead pass. But competitively, it's usually kind of just in the flow of our 5-on-5 stuff or our 4-on-4 stuff, and kind of just stressing those game situations where it's okay. You're gonna have a guy riding your jersey. How you gonna get open, and how you gonna give your man a target for a pass? And like on the other side of it, how are you gonna hit that guy? I like to tell our guys, you're not going to throw it to the spot that they're at. You're going to throw it to the spot that they're going to be at.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you throw it to the spot where they're at, that's going the other way. So I think that was for this program that I'm with now. That was kind of another adjustment that they had to make and kind of get used to. Was like, okay, well, I got his hands here now, but the defender's on him. I'm not going to throw it to his hand. I'm going to throw it a step out where he's going to be, where he's going to meet the ball. So just
Right.
kind of stressing that on them.
And so one of the things that I think it seems to be really important to you because of the fact that you do a lot of work in transition is that you want to make sure that, like stationary passes aren't really going to be applicable to what you're trying to do like in a game. Because if you're trying to
Yeah.
trying to get out in transition, like you said, you're hitting the man in stride, you're trying to, get that outlet pass and get going down the floor. And so, I think for teams who really want to kind of shore up their passing and really want to, get better or have their team get better at passing. It's almost like you have to think of like, well, where do we need these passes coming in? Are we doing transition? Do we need to make sure that we're getting work in practicing out in transition? Like, where are our players passing the ball the most? And I think that seems to be
Yeah.
something that is important for you to be aware of so that the practice kind of directly translates right to the game.
Yeah, no, exactly. Our kind of rule is, they know they have the 7 seconds or less kind of offense. But I tell them 5 seconds. First shot we get, let's taking it. And I tell them I'm gonna be the first coach to ever take you out for not shooting the ball. To us it's front the ball. So I guess the most important pass for us is that front. That front kind of determines how the possession is going to go. If it's a good front and our wings are running hard, then okay, he can make a play in the open court and get something going from there. If that front is not so great, those are behind him. that kind of disrupts the flow, and now we got to get in the half court. So for us, it's really it is a lot of transition passing, knowing different reads, and what that falls again on my point guard. He's kind of the orchestrator. He has to read the floor. He kind of has to, it all starts there. And his job is, to me, it's the most important because he's me on the floor. He's the coach on the floor. So there's stuff that I'm going to see that I expect him to see the same thing once he catches that outlet. And it got to be a quick decision. It has to be a very, very quick decision on what you're going to do. And then we get in, we go. And then when we get in the half court, and I stress also a quick decision. I tell you, you have 1 second to decide what you're going to do. If you're going to pass, shoot, dribble. Mm-hmm. If you're on the ball for more than 1 second, you're holding it too long. And that comes back to their passing as well, because, some of these guys, when I told them that, it's panic. And it's, I had the ball for a second. Let me get rid of it. But, they're not making a good pass. They just get off the ball just to get off the ball. So that was another adjustment that we kind of had to make and kind of get them on. Is like, hey, slow the game down in your head. Once you can start kind of seeing the floor and making decisions, those things are going to come to you. It's going to be a lot easier, but the quality of the play you're going to do can't come down just because you're in a rush. You got to be able to play fast, but you also have to be able to play the right way.
Mm-hmm. And I think that comes down to, like you mentioned, about being able to see the floor, kind of like your vision and being able to see everything, and that, you certainly don't want to just make a pass for the sake of making a pass because it was just 1 second, but kind of building on okay, we got to, see the whole floor and see what's going on. And I feel like your philosophy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that action over inaction, and that trying to do something and trying to make something, even if it ends up being a mistake, sounds like to me like it's better than inaction or being hesitant to do something. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes. Yeah, I like to say everyone got the green light. That's what I tell them at the beginning of the year. I said, it's the only team you're ever going to play on where 1 through 15, you all got the green light. So I tell them, take advantage now. And what happens is usually it kind of, in our offense, we run a 4-out. We don't really run many plays. Most of our plays are kind of just quick hitters for a look. But so what kind of generally happens is it's kind of like you're playing pickup. And when you're playing pickup, you usually kind of the ball always ends up in the best player's hands, right? So it's kind of like the same thing within our offense is, I'm telling everyone you got the green light. That's building their confidence up, and, to me, it's I want everyone to have that confidence. But at the end of the day, just within the flow of our offense, the way we play, because we're not running plays, because we're not running a set motion, the ball, for the most part, usually ends up in the better player's hands at the end of the possession. So I've always kind of just stressed, hey, why am I going to tell this guy, don't ever shoot? Why am I going to tell him that? Because if he's ever in a situation where, end of the game, it ends up in his hands there, he's going to have no confidence to shoot everything. That's a great shot. Every shot is a great shot for everyone. That's what I like to say. All these shots are good shots for all of you. Because at the end of the day, I know within the flow of everything, it's going to end up in our best player's hands or one of our better players' hands, kind of regardless anyways.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. And I think that one of the things that might be concerning, and so I want to touch on that, because I know this is a lot of, I don't know if fear is the right word, but it's something that a lot of coaches are aware of in sort of that, 4-out or maybe a more loosely defined offense, is the worry about the ball sticking and the over dribbling versus actually getting the ball moving and passing the ball around. Is that something that you've had to contend with or not, with too much dribbling or too much, isolation work versus moving the ball around? Or is that something that you've kind of been able to get away from and not have your players be doing?
I think for me, it was kind of a blessing to kind of inherit them when they've kind of we're just used to running the flex, because, in the flex, it's kind of just you catch, wait for the spot, and it's not much dribbling. So they're already kind of used to not, they're not doing isolation anyways. So when I introduced the 4-out to them, it's brand new, and they just kind of got thrown into it. It wasn't that hard for me to be like, okay, listen, it's going to be all passing, and the opportunity we're going to get to score, it should be 2 dribbles and you're getting your basket. So for us, we always, whenever we do live situations in practice, it's always you have 2 dribbles or less anyways. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of helped. And those guys that create this, for the most part, I've always said in basketball, guys that can get a bucket, they can get a bucket 2 dribbles or less. If you can't get a bucket 2 dribbles or less, you're not really a bucket getter in my eyes. So
Right.
that, it's kind of, for this group that I have right now, they've really bought into it, and it's kind of, that's hasn't been an issue at all. I've had teams where, there's one guy who's, head and shoulders above the other guys, and he just, okay, I'm not passing the ball, and he's giving you 35 a game, and it's like, all right, what am I going to tell him? But you gotta have everyone involved, and with this group I have now, they've done a great job of just buying in, and we really, I, we have no guys that are selfish. We have no guys that they're out to just get baskets for themselves, because every team, some teams, a lot of teams have that guy. Oh, I'm just worried about my points. I'm worried about this. For us, I tell my guys, hey, the way we play, there's going to be 5 of you that might score 25 points a game or more at some point during the season. Just be based off how our offense works. So, it'll come to you, but the ball can't stick, ball can't move, and you dribble more than 2 times in practice, well, that's a turnover. You can't. That, to me, that's worse than the ball sticking, is over dribbling. I'd
Yeah.
rather have you hold the ball and get a 5-second count than dribble the ball for 10 seconds and go nowhere with it.
And I think that I know that some coaches are, they're concerned about is players, and if they're working with, certain individuals, they're watching, videos on YouTube or whatever, and there's all these like different types of dribbling moves, and they're doing all these sort of dribbling action, dribbling moves, and then as a coach you're like, well, probably never ever do this in a game, and so can you
Yeah.
step in and make a chest pass, like can you do that as well?
Oh
And
yeah,
so
that's like especially out here. Out here, there's so many of these skills trainers and stuff like that. And it's like, you guys are teaching. You got every kid got the Euro step package, but you can't do a left hand layup. It's like simple things like that, and that's why I like to stress on my guys. Fundamental stuff. You're gonna get your basket. You're gonna catch, rip through. You're gonna have to dip your shoulder and get in the guy and get to the basket, or you're gonna have to make a shot. But all the extra stuff, that, to me, I tell them, you can use that in transition. You catch the ball in the front, and it's a one-on-one in transition with you and your guy. That's when you pull those moves out. But 95% of the game, you're not going to use that. And that's definitely been a struggle I've had with players in the past, is that, well, my trainer told me this, my trainer taught me this. And I said, well, when are you ever going to get in that situation? The only time you'd be in that situation is if I let you dribble the ball for 20 seconds out of the shot clock, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definitely a lot of value, and I do have an interview there with a skills trainer in the catalog as well, and there's definitely value, and I think it's kind of like with a skills trainer, anything where you're putting money into it, whether it's AAU or skills trainer, it's just know what you're getting, like know who the person is,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of do your research and
that's
do your homework.
yeah, and a lot of the times, I used to train kids when I first started coaching when I was in my earlier 20s, and a lot of the times it's really just the parents don't know. The parents, if the parents didn't play, or someone around them didn't play, they don't know. They don't know
Hmm.
what they're supposed to expect from a skills trainer. So it's a lot of the times, and that's it goes the same thing for club teams. A lot of the times, those club teams is just parents don't know what to expect, so they just say, okay, here's my money, and that's when that disconnect comes between the parent and the high school coach, because say, oh, well, the trainer's telling me my son should be on varsity, but that trainers, of course they're going to tell you what they want to hear. You put money in their pocket. So
Yeah.
that, my thing is, definitely do your research on your trainers. Definitely see kind of what they're about. Um, I've been around guys who they focus training on, it's all game situations. It's all, we're going one dribble pull up this way, one dribble pull up that way, because those are the realistic looks you're gonna get in a game. The 4 dribble combos are nice, but I tell my guys, there's like 3 people in the world that have that freedom. You got Kyrie Irving, you got there's like 3 guys in the NBA where
Yeah.
they can do that, and they get paid $30 million a year to do that. And they said, none of you guys are getting paid $30 million a year, so none of you guys gonna be doing that on my floor.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I might steal that one too, if I need to. That's good. So when it comes back to this idea of like making good passes and getting the good passes that you want within your offense, do you have a lot of experience with those entry passes in the post? It doesn't sound like there's too much, at least currently, of post work, or maybe even having those traditional post players where you're going to throw the ball in the post, but maybe you do. And have you had experience with that before?
On the teams I played, my high school team, I pretty much run the same thing as my high school coach did. He kind of opened my eyes to. I came from my first program. We were running the Princeton and
Hmm.
doing all that. Then I transferred schools, and he was just like, oh, we're just running, just four out, just make sure you stay spaced, four out, and let's just push the ball. And with that team, we kind of had we had 2 6'8" bigs, so there's different setups. When I got a big, I'll have them on the block. If I don't have a big like my program now, we have them in a high post. And when it gets to the half court, if we don't get a look in transition, what I like to do, I like to start with a high post entry and have my guards come off, and then we start the offense that way. Just because for me, I've always kind of said bigs. It's not really about bigs getting shots. I think it's just about bigs getting touches. I don't think they kind of get left out a lot, and when it comes to offensive stuff, and that usually kind of gets them salty a little bit. And so
Hmm.
for me, it's always been we always going to keep them involved just with touches. So I like to start all my half court possessions at least with the touch, so that with the entry to the high post. And my quote unquote big that I have right now, he's not really a big. I would just say he's just the heaviest dude on our team. So
He's the biggest.
yeah, you're the default big, but he can step outside, he can shoot the ball. He probably like 6'3", but he's like a bigger 6'3". But I mean, for us, it kind of works out because then he gets active kind of with the on ball screens. That's what we tell him. Say, hey, just be active every on ball, every time a guy got the ball at the top, set an on ball for him.
Hmm.
You got to be active in that high post area because realistically, you're 6'3". I'm not going to put you on the block against a 6'9" guy and think you're going to do anything of value for us. If anything, you're making it worse because you're keeping that big guy next to the rim. So I
Yeah.
always like to have him. All of our bigs on the high post. We actually have a big coming up in our program right now who's about 6'8". So he kind of just started playing basketball, and he's just made like great improvements over the last year. So
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have to start implementing some more of that stuff with him because he's like traditional big man, big body, 6'8", just got to be in the post. So I'm excited for that. But for now, it's just we roll with our five guys that are under 6'3" and start with our high post entry, and that's how we get him involved. High post entry straight into an on ball, and we go from there.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I think that you have to be flexible, like we talked about. Just because you have your biggest player doesn't mean that they're going to be a back to the basket, more traditional post player. Like in your case, if they're 6'3", like you said, you don't want to have them down in the low post where the 6'9" player is also going to be, having to defend them because then you have that 6'9" player right by the rim. So,
Yeah, and
you
he
don't.
don't want to be there anyways. He thinks he's a
Yeah.
point. My big man thinks he's a point guard anyway, so he'll shy away from the block as much as he can.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. So just to touch on that thought though, for coaches who are listening, who might have a little bit more of those traditional like big players that will be there on the low block. What do you find is important to make sure that entry pass into the low block or into the post is done correctly?
For me, I think it starts with the big. Um, it starts with a big giving them a target. I always teach my bigs, hey, that offhand, whatever you posting on the left block, that left hand you got to give your man a target. Um, and usually that target got to be high. I think a lot of guards make the mistake. You're throwing entry passes, bounce pass. Big men, in my opinion, big men don't want the bounce passes, entry passes. Big men, they're up, they're big. Throw it up for the big fella. Um, so to me, it starts with the target, the big man giving him a target, and the big man jumping to meet the ball. But on the perimeter for those guards, it's always I always teach my guys, you're gonna make a post entry, you gotta have a ball fake before. Um, gotta have a ball fake a pass, make a pass. But I always like to throw that corner, that throw it up away from the defense, let your big man meet it, and then use space. That's always been big for me. When we do have a big, if I have a team that does have a big, feed him. If he's working on the block, feed him. Um, but it's always about the right angles. We don't make post entry passes from the top. We
Hmm.
only make post entry passes from the wing or the baseline. Just kind of knowing your angles. Also, it's reading the defender. If the defender's playing him on the baseline side, then you're going to have to find a different angle. You might have to dribble to create that angle for him, or your postman might have to, readjust his positioning just to be able to give you a target. But for us, it's always, fake a pass, make a pass, throw it away from the defense, and big man always got to meet the ball.
Yeah, what you said, it kind of made me think of a funny story about the entry pass and the high hands and getting it up high. And I was watching a game. Oh, man, it was a boys' game. It was a couple of years ago, and there was a traditional kind of back to the basket players, probably 6'7" or whatever, and the guard tried to make a bounce pass in the entry, and I kid you not, that 6'7" player almost fell over trying to get to the ball, because like you said, some of them just they don't want to bounce pass. They don't want anything that low. Like they just want to meet it where their hands are, and so just made me think of that kind of know what your big man needs and where they need to be, and like you said, it's about them first.
I had a big man in travel ball, and that's when this was like my first year coaching travel ball. I was like 20. Yeah, that's who I got it from, and he was a big dude, came from Africa to come play here, and he was yelling at the guard, and he's like, "I'm over here, I'm up here, I'm this big. Why are you gonna throw it at my ankles?" And I was like, it stuck to me. I was like, "That's true. Why are we gonna throw him a bounce pass? Because he's working. He got his hand. That's almost at the rim with his hand up. Why are we gonna throw it down for him? Throw the thing up for him."
Yeah. I think just trust, and if you trust your player and you trust your big man to go get it, you get it to where they need to, and let them, kind of put that work in. So yeah, it's funny that you have
exactly.
kind of the same story as well. And something else that you touched on that I'm glad you did, because it had slipped my mind, but you brought it up, is in terms of passing, about teaching pass fakes and how to sell and how to actually produce a good pass fake that will actually, get the defense to bite on it. So let's kind of talk about that for a little bit. What goes into a good pass fake, and what are some things that you work on to make sure that those pass fakes look good?
We like to start off. We do our warm up in our warm up series. We kind of do, we do a warm up, and we do a jump stop series, and we do a shot fake series, and we do a ball fake series. So it's kind of, I tell my guys, the same way you sell a shot fake, you gotta get that ball above your head. It's the same way you sell a pass fake, And it might even be times where, that guy is calling for the ball. The defense is hearing him say one more, and you kind of see your defender cheating on that swing, and you get it, boom, sell it there, and step into the ball fake, bring it back, and then you can make another pass or make another play. But pass faking, it's a very, very important part of kind of half court offense, I would say. And a lot of it is kind of, to me as a point guard, it's kind of like reading your eyes. The defense reads your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to teach my point give them a little misdirection with your eyes. That's just as good as making a ball fake. Is if you drive to the lane, I see both guys open in the corner and the guy on top. If I'm looking at the guy on top, but I make that pass to the guy in the corner, that's just as good to me as, okay, let me fake that pass to make that pass. But that comes down to skill level at the end of the day also. But yeah, ball faking for us is very important. We don't really, I guess, necessarily have any drills that go over that. We kind of just start off our practice with that basic thing, but we do like to sell it. We like to say, especially against our zone, whenever we play our zones, it's always fake a pass, make a pass. Like when we play zone, every single pass, you got to make a ball fake. Just to kind of get that zone jumping, get the zone moving, just to open up what we want to get.
And so in your experience with doing it, what is maybe the biggest thing? I know you mentioned a couple, but what is the biggest thing that you see in pass fakes that makes you think, okay, nobody's biting on that? What is like that biggest thing that maybe coaches should be aware of for like poor pass fakes?
Oh, I mean, when the player doesn't even turn their body, it's just kind of, they just move their arms a little bit that direction, and it's, to me, I always think, I swear, it's like, we know you're not passing the ball. So yeah, I would say like stepping in, like I was always stressed, like, you really got to sell it. If you're catching on a swing and you're going to sell that shot fake, you turn your body, step into it, make that ball fake, and bring it back to triple threat. Because you do see a lot of just, I'm not even going to turn my body. I'm not even going to look at that guy next to me. I don't even know if he's there, but I'm just going to throw my arms there, and there you go. There's my ball fake.
Well, in what you just sort of mentioned about the fact that, how much you emphasize, you mentioned this a little bit earlier about stepping into your passes. And so if I'm a coach and you know, I know that, okay, like they always step into their passes and then they do a, you know, some form of a pass fake and they're not stepping into it, then, well,
Yeah,
like, yeah, that's not,
don't.
you know, nobody's buying into that. So because
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
how you normally pass. And so it seems like what a coach might want to do is just basically say, like, you're pretty much doing everything you would pretty much normally do with your pass, except you're just not passing it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
maybe players worry that, like, it's too slow, maybe if they go through the whole motion, so they just want to kind of like do something real quick and then try and, you know, fake them out that way. But, you know, like you said, if they're just kind of throwing their arms out like that, well, it's not really selling it too much.
Yeah, it's not going to be effective.
Right. And then you also mentioned too, maybe it's kind of like a secondary thing as well. It's kind of like the eyes and where like the eyes are going as well. I feel like that's also something that's really important. Is, you know, what are your eyes and what are they looking at? Like, is it really being sold like you're going to pass that way, or like, are your eyes just fixated on one area and then your body or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
just sort of moves some other direction? Um,
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, my dad, when they were coaching us, they really used to always stress peripheral vision on us. Like I remember clearly, like when we were in like kindergarten, first grade, and I was like, I don't even know what this word means. And they used to have put our fingers in front of our faces and pull them out to the side and keep looking at them. And like I think that helped me so much. I think in every sport that I played in my life was just the peripheral vision and understanding that. And I understand in the game we wearing black jerseys, they're wearing white jerseys. And my peripherals, I can't make out their face, but I see a black jersey here and I see a white jersey there. Okay, I know where I can make these passes, even though I'm not looking that direction, or even though, I'm not, my head's not directly turned towards that guy. That peripheral vision opens everything up. So I've been stressing to my guys about peripheral vision and using that, because some kids don't even like realize what that is and realize what peripheral vision is. And as a point guard and just as a guard in general, I think that opens it up so much for you if you can use your peripheral vision to kind of just make plays. And that's big for me.
Yeah, it might be good for coaches to just stop and say, "Do you guys know what your peripheral vision is? Do you guys know what that means? What that term means?" And hopefully we're not surprised or shocked by the answers. But if you are, then that's a very good teaching moment that probably will help you and your
Yeah,
team a little bit
definitely.
if they're not quite aware of what that is. So yeah, that might be a little good takeaway to have there as well. What is peripheral vision? Because like you said, I mean, we talked about this a couple of times. You know, there's certain things that, you know, you and I may have just learned at a young age and just assume that kids know these things, but, you know, you don't want to assume. You don't want to assume that at all.
Yeah, no.
No, not at
Sometimes
all.
it's just like you got to break it down, go back to day one, and even if they have heard of it, it's not going to hurt for you to bring it up again and refresh their mind.
Right. And yeah, and make sure that it's, you know, being taught or explained the way that you want it to be explained, because maybe they have heard
Hmm.
of it, but their understanding of it might be different than what you want their understanding of it to be. So yeah, there's no harm in just going over it just to make sure. It's just kind of a good teaching practice in general, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
So the obviously one of the other important parts with the pass is making sure that the catch of that pass is clean and is as great as it can be. And I know that you do a lot of work, like we talked about, in transition. And so in, you know, cases where that player's got to be out there and ready to catch the ball in stride, are there any like real points of emphasis that you have to make sure that, you know, your players are catching the ball where it needs to be caught and they're ready to get going out in transition?
I stress on my wing guys. Run the lanes wide. We have them in practice. You got to be touching the sidelines when you're running lanes, and that was something else that's been instilled in me since I was young. Is you do not run your lanes. The volleyball, we used to always say the volleyball poles, because they got the little inserts on the basketball court there. It says you do not run your lanes inside there ever, and that's just always been in my mind. It's just that's what I do. You got to run wide, because the way I break it down to my guys is that in transition defense, what are you taught? You're taught to protect the basket. So everyone's going to be running to the basket on defense. So the wider you are, the less chance there is that you're going to have a defender there trying to take that pass from you. If you're running down the sideline and they're being taught, let me go protect the basket. So the wider you are, to me, is okay. Now I can catch the ball, and now I'm going to have maybe 5-10 feet to come at you with in transition, and now I can make a play while you're on your heels.
Hmm.
You're just struggling to get back to the basket. I'm going full steam ahead, and I got 5 feet to just go full speed at you and make a move. So I always stress my wings just run as wide as possible and look for the ball. I had a couple kids when I first started at Orange that, I was telling you, run the lanes hard. They're running the lanes, but they're not looking for the ball. It's just you see the back of their head only, and it's just they're running to get to the spot, and the ball went out of bounds because someone passed it to them and they didn't even know. It just went right. It went right behind them. So it's just running the lanes, looking for the ball, and just looking to make a play in transition. But I think to me, is the wider the better.
And I don't know about with you in your experience, but I know for me that is, it's been a reoccurring thing that I feel like I've taught over the years is about getting wide. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced yourself,
Yeah.
but I feel like players just they don't really run that wide. It always gets narrower and narrower as like their first instinct is to be all bunched up and not really create that space. And it seems like that might be something that you've seen consistently as well.
Yeah, that's something that we definitely have to get on our guys. I mean, and that's really been at every school I've been at. It's just, running wide. Just getting in their head is just, I do it from day one. Run wide, run wide, run wide. Touch the sideline when, you know, emphasize it in practice and exaggerate it in practice where it's the point where when you're in a game, you might be running out of bounds in the game while you're running your lane. But yeah, it's definitely been a thing where it's like, man, these kids don't learn when they're growing. No one tells these kids to run the lanes wide when they're growing up. But I mean, to me, it always comes back down to spacing, and especially within our
Yep.
offense, everything we do is down to spacing. So I always tell my guys, hey, the defense is running to protect the basket. Let's run wide. So now when you catch that ball in transition, now you have plenty of room to work with before you even meet the defense, and now you can just go full steam ahead, make your move, and try and get a basket or create for someone else. Rather than if you're running the lane narrow, you catch the ball. Now you're catching the ball the defender 2 feet away from you. You can't even put the ball on the floor.
Nope.
And that same thing in the half court. I always tell my guys, when you're off the ball, you're spacing. You need to make your defender make a choice. If he's either got to go choose to help, and then if he chooses to help, now you can move, slide up, slide down, whichever way it may be. And now you got yourself a shot. And now, but if you're spaced well enough where he doesn't know if he should go help, and your teammate gets a layup from it, to me, I tell them that's an assist for you. You got your teammate a basket based off your spacing because now your defender had to make a choice. He made the choice to stay with you, and now that created a lane for your teammate. So it all comes back down to spacing with us. It's always about that's the biggest thing we stress is spacing, and that's transition in the half court, everything.
Yeah, and I think that when players see that, when they see like, hey, look at how wide you got and look at the lane that you created for somebody else to score, like we wouldn't have scored that without you having gotten wide. And I
Yeah.
think that might be something where that's kind of where it kind of clicks maybe for players. Like this is why you're running wide and this is why this needs to happen. Like you do this, then potentially this can end up happening, and then hopefully it sounds like in your case the players kind of see that and it's like, oh, okay, and now they'll always be running wide, hopefully.
Yeah. And that's
always
like
be doing
something you don't even think of I think as a player growing up. And I think until I transferred high schools and went into that new offense, it was kind of like I didn't think about that either. And then it started thinking, okay, well, we're so spaced out. My guy's so worried about me. My teammate just got a layup because he can't help. I was like, that feels good. And as a pass first point guard, we kind of get joy. And I'd much rather throw a nice pass for someone. That gives me more joy than me going out and just breaking someone down and getting a basket. So I think it comes down to loving those little things, that's setting a good screen. It's things like that. And that's what I try and kind of sell them on is, you might not think it's anything. And to someone that's watching the game, they might not think you did anything. But that basket was only scored because I'm in this position, or this guy only got the shot because I'm here and I spaced this way. Like you guys as a team can know those things. The casual fan might not see when they're just watching the game. And to me, I was like, those are the things that you have to like kind of pride yourself on. I said that's how I got my looks. And that's what I tell them. I said, hey, I was a Division I, basketball player. I got recruited really early, and I think my highest point per game total ever I had in the season in high school was 13 points a game. And it's like, but they saw me and they saw I could do all the little things. I'm setting good screens. I know how to space the floor. I know what reads to make. I tell them if you want to play at the next level, those little things are going to matter. That's going to be kind of what the most important thing, because there's really only a couple guys in the country who they're really bringing in to be like, okay, give us 30 points a game. That's not a realistic situation for most people going in to play college basketball or even going in to play high school basketball. So kind of get your minutes by doing those little things and taking pride in it. And I think that's like one of the biggest things I try and tell my guys is that, hey, you can do all these little things. You'll never get off the floor.
Yeah, no, they'll never want you off the floor if you're able to, successfully, do all those little things and be able to be a selfless player and work for the better of everybody else. I think that there'll always be space. There'll always be an opportunity for players with that sort of skill set or that sort of mentality. Yeah, absolutely. The final thing that I wanted to just touch on really quickly before we hit our concluding segment is with a lot of the work in terms of the transition work of pushing the ball up ahead. How much, if any, I mean, I'm assuming there's a little bit, but how much bounce passing exists within your offense? Because it sounds like a lot of it is just pushing up the floor, and I'm not exactly sure how much, in terms of like the bounce pass that you guys are implementing. So I'm just curious about where the bounce pass kind of fits in, whether it's within like transition, whether it's in your 4-out offense. Well, what does that sort of look like?
It's mostly after like an initial drive. I would say either for a dump off for our big, if we get in the lane, or if we front. We like to kind of do a little transition series where we go through kind of every scenario in our transition. So there's a lot of times we front to the wing, he drives baseline, he might make a bounce pass down the baseline to our other guy sliding to the opposite corner, things like that. It doesn't really happen game scenarios. I would say most of the time it's for the dump off for the big.
Yep.
Because we draw the big up and we kind of do the bounce pass there. But I do like to go through that with them in practice every day. Is that when we do our transition series, that baseline drive, make that bounce pass, across the baseline to the other side. But for the most part, we don't really have much bounce passing. Obviously, there's going to be with our high post entry. We like to start that with the bounce pass just to kind of get them away from the defense and get them at the top of the key. But for the most part, it's a lot of chest passing. It's a lot of full court. I like to give my guards a one dribble rule. You got one after you catch outlet pass, you got one dribble to get off the ball. So you got one dribble, then you got a front. If there's more than one dribble, so for the most part, it's quick one pass up, and then I get an attack from there, and it's either going to be a kick for a shot there or whatever the case may be.
Right. And so then it would seem like at least in your practice like situations that, there's no point necessarily in equally distributing the types of passes that you're doing, because if you're not doing as many bounce passes, then, it's not something that you really need to see emphasized or see like implemented a lot in your practice situations.
Yeah. I mean, we like to do it just to, especially with the group we have now, it's such a young group. We like to do it just to kind of have them going with everything and kind of just have it in mind. Because a lot of these kids, haven't been taught like the basic fundamentals that I have. So I'm just, I like to cover all the bases with them just so they know. And if they ever end up playing for someone else or playing, it's not a foreign thing to them.
Yeah, that it makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that they have the skill set available there, but making sure that they're choosing the right pass and making the right pass, when that opportunity arises and knowing which pass is the correct one to make in that particular situation. Yeah, 100%. All right, so to wrap up, Coach, what I would like to do is a couple questions that I ask every guest. First question, in your coaching career, is there a coaching moment that you have had that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
An in-game moment or an out-of-game moment, would you say?
Whatever came to mind first when I asked that question would be the right answer, because that was the one that came to mind.
I would probably say that just with like this job I just took, it's not a desirable, it's not really a desirable place. It's actually funny. I didn't even interview for the job. They reached out to. I interviewed, but they reached out to me. I didn't, I was cool where I was at. They reached out to me, and I was kind of, that was already to me was like, that's a red flag. Right? Why are you calling me? I was like, why are you calling me 3 weeks before the season starts about a coaching job? I know there's other ways you go about that. You put it out there, you do a job search. And I think I had so many like nerves about it. It's like, man, they've never been great. They've never been great. You know, they're traditionally not that great of a basketball school. They're calling me to come coach there, which can't be, to in my mind was like, this can't be good. I'm going to be walking into an absolute, you know, it's, I don't know, it's going to be crazy what I'm walking into. And I said, you know, I'm just going to go for it. Because to me, it's my first varsity coaching job. You know, I learned under a lot of great coaches and been on, and I was like, you know what, maybe it's just time. You know, this is someone telling me something somewhere. You know, this is where I'm supposed to be at. Because you know the way I got here is not really ideal. So to me, I would say, you know, just follow your gut. Don't be scared to take that jump. You know, because there was a lot of nerves involved, especially, you know, I got to take over a program and we have a game in 3 weeks. I never even met these kids. We got a game in 3 weeks. You know, you guys are calling me. I don't even know where the school is at. I've never even seen the school before. You know, the only thing I know about it is that they've always been bad. So I think for me, it's kind of like, you know, take pride in those things and take pride in, you know, let me build this thing up from the ground up, and let me kind of see where all my philosophies and when it comes to running a program and when it comes to, you know, starting, you know, having your basketball philosophies and everything, and kind of see how you can, you know, do it yourself. Because I think a lot of people are kind of scared to take that jump. You know, I was for years. I was like, you know, I'm cool being an assistant coach. I don't think I want to. This is nice. I don't have to worry about the parents. I don't got to worry about the fundraising. I don't got to worry about that. I just gonna be cool, do my basketball stuff, and then that's that. And you know, then as you know, as I interviewed and they kind of started talking to me, I said, you know, I think let me just go for it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out. I'm back to being an assistant, and now it's like I've fallen in love with it. Like, oh, even with like the craziness of it and how it is now, you know, I got this job 3 weeks. We had a game, season ended, COVID happened. Now I'm like, man, this is about to, you know, this has just been like a crazy ride. And to
For
me,
sure.
I've loved every step of it. And it's been, you know, very, very rewarding kind of seeing. And I was lucky enough to inherit a program that, you know, I had no seniors in my program last year. So I'm lucky enough I'm going to have these guys for, you know, years. And I'm going to be able to see that growth from when they first started with me to now. And I've already seen it. And I think to me, seeing that growth in them kind of individually as players and as people already, like that already has made the job worth it enough for me.
Yeah.
So like that, like for me, that's enough. I was like, we don't have to win any more games. Like just seeing this growth in them, like from the first day I saw them, the things that they could not do. And like, I just remembered I brought my assistant coach on, and I remember our first day, we were just, this is a funny story. Actually, we had a fall league game. This was like their last fall league game.
Yeah.
You know, fall league games, they don't count. They're just kind of like scrimmages. So we play, and we just tell them, okay, we're going to play. We're just going to sit here. We're not going to say much. We just kind of see you guys play. We win the game by 1 point, and I'll never forget, the whole entire team took out their cell phones and took a picture of the scoreboard. And I said, what are they doing? Coach, this is the first game we won in 3 years. We looked at each other like, there's no way. I was like,
oh, wow.
Because we've come from schools that we're just traditionally winning. And I was like, we looked at each other like, oh, this is going to be a long ride.
Yeah.
You know, this is good. This game don't even count. And we got the whole team going crazy. But, you know, what I've learned kind of through that is like, you know, you got to celebrate those wins with them because they're not used to it. You know, they're not used to winning anything. So at first I was kind of like, these guys are crazy. Do they know this game doesn't count? And then I was kind of like, I thought about it, I was like, that's good for them. And I congratulated on them. And it's kind of just been learning to celebrate those little wins that I thought were just, that don't matter. We're supposed to win that game. You know what? These guys aren't supposed to win those games. So it's, I'm on the other side of it now, where we're going to celebrate all those little wins, and we're going to celebrate kind of those little achievements that we get. And that's going to build their confidence more to have them achieve even more. So I think for me, that's been like the biggest joy in it. And, you know, to me, that's made it all worth it. So what I would say to other coaches is, if you're an assistant and, you know, apply for every head coaching job you can, you know, try and put your name out there. I've interviewed for coaching jobs when I was 22, I interviewed for one, and I was just, you know, fresh into it. And I was like, hey, why not? I might as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't get it. And I was just kind of like, I can't really be that mad about it, but I think that did kind of in the back of my head. I was like, I don't want to go through that again and have to, be denied again. And I think that kind of put me off it for a couple of years. And I'm 27 now, and just like having my program and kind of, I'm a younger head coach when it comes, at least in this area. I'm a younger head coach, so it's kind of like I can't really go about my stuff the same way that most coaches would. Like my high school coach was like a father figure type. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be a father figure type to these kids. They probably have siblings that are my age. So it's like, I'm not going to be here. I have to go about things differently. And as I get older and, as I learn more and get more knowledgeable, then yeah, I'll start going about things in kind of a different way. But for me, it's been such a joy. And, I encourage all coaches, no matter how young you are, even if no matter how old you are, you've been an assistant for 20-some years, man, go for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a different kind of joy to me. I've had a whole different kind of satisfaction. I've coached AU, I've got kids scholarships, and none of those things have really ever like amounted to like the joy I've been getting just from seeing my program and seeing the guys in my program develop.
No, that's great. And I think that like you said, you just kind of jump on those opportunities. You never know when they're going to come. And, I think that there's something great that can be had at almost any experience that you're at. Well, you just got to kind of jump into it and just see what happens. and you might be surprised at how much, a situation that you like didn't really know about, all of a sudden you get there and, you fall in love with it, but you have to, take that chance first. Right.
Yep.
That's
And
great.
another thing I would say to young coaches is be a sponge. That's what, someone told me that at a very young age. And, I take that to heart. Be a sponge, absorb everything that every coach around you kind of brings to the table. And then, as time goes on, you kind of squeeze out the stuff that, I'm not going to use this, but I'm going to take this from here and this
Yep.
from here. Because at the end of the day, you got guys like Calipari of Kentucky, you got Roy Williams. These guys are still talking about stuff they're learning now. And look at their careers and look how much they've accomplished. And they have them on record now to this day talking about, well, I just learned this, and we're gonna put this. This is the first time I've done this. I'm learning
Yeah.
this, and if those guys are still learning, then
Yeah.
you
Better
you're
get to work.
definitely yeah. So especially in coaching, and every group you're gonna have is gonna be different. So every year is gonna be different with the way you approach things, the way you have to teach things. So to me, I think I've encountered a lot of people who are kind of like my way or the highway type people.
hmm
And to me, I don't believe in that. I believe you let the players kind of drive you into which direction that you're gonna have to take them. But it's not one size fits all when it comes to anything with kids.
Right.
Um, it's always going to be different, and you kind of always have to be able to make that adjustment if you want to do it the right way. Because at the end of the day, I think I found that I look back and I kind of see that a lot of coaches try and make it about them. It's
Mhm.
my system, my philosophy. I did this, I did that, and I think it should be the opposite way. It should be like, this is all the kids. That we do it for the kids. We're trying to put them in a position to succeed.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's not about, oh, my plays work, your plays don't work. That we're gonna run this because it's mine and it works. I said this is the way I've always done it. It's to me that's like my biggest pet peeve. I would say in coaching is that I just see so many people where it's like they're so stuck on them doing it their way, and
Yeah.
and I encourage everyone like, man, let the kids drive you to where you're gonna go. Let them determine kind of which route that you have to take to push them, to motivate them, kind of like to coach them, and just to make them better players and better people. Is like it's you're gonna have to approach it differently if you do anything. I work for social services, so I work with kids outside of coaching as well. So it's like that's all I'm doing is adjusting to new ways to talk to kids and to help them out. So I'm really, really big on advocating for that. Is like, don't make it about you. When you're the coach, it's not about you. It's about the players.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a great thought to kind of leave it at that, just take the ego out, like you said, and do it for the right reasons, which is for the kids and the betterment of them and celebrating all of the successes that they have. And if you do that, I think you're going to get a lot more longevity out of the profession too, if
Yeah,
you kind of
for
have that
sure.
approach. I think that's a great thought to leave off on, and hopefully one that I'll personally always try and remember. Some days are a little harder than others, but
Oh yeah,
at
of
the
course.
end of the
It's a
day,
every
yeah,
it's an everyday choice you got to make. That's what I always say. Every day you know, because there's gonna be some days where you're like, man, these kids don't know what they doing. We doing this, you know. It's an everyday choice.
Yep, certainly. It's definitely a process and a great one at that. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for spending some time to talk about, just your offense, about passing, and then, so much more here that we talked about in the last bit as well. So this is a great conversation. I wish you luck. I hope that you get to, finally start doing some real basketball soon, get some games to play and get that season under your belt. So, Coach Castaneda, thank you so much for spending some time talking to us. Good luck going forward.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you having me.
Always. Thank you. And thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.